The USS Defiance drifted in the empty space between star systems with new scars along its hull from recent battles with 3 different enemy fleets. In his private quarters, Captain Jake Morrison sat alone staring at a small photograph of Earth. The blue and white world looked so peaceful and beautiful in the picture, but it was impossibly far away from where he now found himself. A soft sound announced someone at his door. "Come in," he called, and Dr. Lisa Park entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee that smelled like home. She handed him one of the cups and sat down in the chair across from his desk. "I thought you might need this," she said with a gentle smile. "The crew has been worried about you, Jake. You have been keeping to yourself too much since we met with the alien diplomats." Morrison accepted the coffee and felt its warmth spread through his hands. "Sometimes I wonder if we are doing the right thing, Lisa," he said. "Who gave us the right to decide how the entire galaxy should be run? What makes us think we know better than civilizations that have existed for thousands of years?" Park sipped her coffee and chose her words carefully. "The same people who stopped 3 different genocides last month," she said. "The same people who prevented the hegemony from destroying an entire solar system just to mine its resources. The same people who have given hope to dozens of species, who thought endless expansion was just the way things had to be." Morrison gestured toward the window that showed only stars and darkness. "But at what cost?" he asked. "We are all alone out here, one ship against impossible odds. Every day brings new enemies and new challenges. How long can we keep fighting before something breaks?" Before Park could answer, the communication system came to life with an urgent message. "Captain to the bridge, Priority 1," the voice said. Minutes later, Morrison and his senior officers stood around the tactical display as Commander Kevin Roberts showed them the latest intelligence reports. "Sir," he said, "our long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movements in 7 different sectors. It looks like the Galactic Council has decided to coordinate their response against us. We are looking at about 2,000 warships all heading toward our last known position." Lieutenant Amy Zhang added more bad news. "Communications intercepts suggest they are planning to attack us from multiple directions at the same time. They are calling it Operation Final Solution, sir. It sounds like they mean to end this once and for all." Morrison studied the display and noted how the enemy formations were arranged and where they would probably attack from. "They are learning," he said. "No more small battles or testing our defenses. This time they are bringing everything they have got." Dr. Park examined the sensor data and shook her head. "Jake, even with all our technological advantages, those are overwhelming numbers. Maybe it is time to contact Earth and ask for reinforcements." The captain firmly shook his head. "Earth sent 1 ship because 1 ship is all humanity can spare," he said. "Our home worlds are using all their resources to protect our own people and build new colonies. We knew from the beginning that this would be a mission we had to complete alone." Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his control panel with concern on his face. "Captain, I have been analyzing our quantum drive systems," he said. "The constant jumping between star systems and the stress from combat is taking its toll on the equipment. I can keep everything running at current performance levels for maybe 6 more months before we need major repairs." Morrison absorbed this information without showing any emotion, then turned to address his entire crew. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "we have reached a decision point. We can retreat to human space and let the galaxy go back to its old ways, or we can stand our ground and prove that doing what is right matters more than how many ships the enemy has." The bridge became very quiet, as everyone thought about what this meant for their futures. Finally, Commander Roberts spoke up for all of them. "Sir, speaking for the entire crew, we did not come this far just to give up now. Whatever you decide to do, we will follow your orders." Morrison nodded, feeling the heavy weight of command and the responsibility of representing everything humanity believed in. "Very well," he said. "Signal all departments to prepare for combat operations. If they want to test our determination, we will show them what happens when you threaten everything that humans stand for." As the crew spread out to their battle stations, Park remained behind. "Jake," she said, "there is something you should know. Our quantum communication array has been receiving messages from Earth. Command has been monitoring our progress, and you should read this." She handed him a data pad with a message from Admiral Sarah Collins, who was the head of Earth's Space Command. The message read, "Captain Morrison and crew of the USS Defiance, your actions have made every human proud. Whatever happens in your mission, know that you carry the hopes and dreams of our entire species. Earth stands behind you. Give them hell. Jake, for the first time in weeks, Morrison allowed himself to smile. He realized that even though they were alone in hostile territory, they were not really alone at all. Every human back on Earth was counting on them and supporting them across the vast distance of space. The captain looked around at his crew as they prepared for what might be their final battle. These men and women had left everything behind to follow him on an impossible mission. They had faced dangers that would have broken lesser people, and they had never complained or asked to go home. If this was where their journey ended, then at least they would face it together. Morrison keyed the ship-wide communication system. "This is the captain," he announced. "In a few hours we will face the largest fleet that has ever been assembled against a single ship. The odds are not in our favor, but that has never stopped us before. We came out here to prove that might does not make right, and that someone has to stand up for those who cannot protect themselves. Today we make our final stand for those principles." He paused to let his words sink in. "We are far from home and we may never see Earth again," he continued. "But we carry something more precious than our own lives. We carry the promise that no species will ever again have to live in fear of being conquered, just because they are smaller or weaker than their neighbors. That promise is worth any sacrifice." As the USS Defiance prepared for battle, the crew knew they were about to write the final chapter of their story. Whether it would be a tale of heroic victory or noble defeat remained to be seen. But they would face it, as they had faced everything else together, and without fear. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the void between star systems like a giant metal flower. Its many arms stretched out into the darkness, while lights blinked along its surface like tiny stars. Inside the main council chamber, 12 different alien species sat around a table that seemed to be made of crystal. The light from above cast strange shadows as each creature shifted in their seats. Admiral Zektar slammed his hard shell-like fist on the table, making a loud crack that echoed through the room. His insect-like face showed anger as he spoke through the translator device that hung around his thick neck. The machine turned his clicking sounds into words that all the others could understand. "3 of our border colonies are gone," he said, "just like that in only a few hours. The humans came with their single ship and destroyed everything we sent against them. They did not ask for anything or make any demands. They just showed up and crushed our fleets, then left behind one simple message that said, 'Your expansion ends here.'" Chancellor Vrex moved nervously in her chair while all 6 of her eyes blinked one after another. Her blue skin had turned a darker shade, which meant she was scared. "The same thing happened to us," she said. "This ship they call the USS Defiance appears out of nowhere and destroys whatever we send to fight it. Then it jumps away into space before we can do anything. They are not trying to take our worlds or steal our resources. It is like they are cutting away parts of our empire, just to stop us from growing larger." Prince Kale was the youngest member sitting at the table, and he leaned forward with interest. His people looked almost human except for the silver hair and the way their skin seemed to glow slightly in the light. "Maybe we are thinking about this the wrong way," he said. "What if these humans do not want to build an empire like the rest of us? What if they want something completely different?" The room became very quiet as everyone thought about what this might mean. For thousands of years, every race that learned how to travel between the stars did the same thing. They found new worlds and took them over. They built bigger and bigger empires until they ran into another empire, and then they fought wars. This was how things had always worked in the galaxy. But these humans seemed to be doing something that nobody understood. Ambassador Thane was the military expert for the council, and he turned on a machine that showed a picture of the human ship floating in the air above the table. The USS Defiance looked like a long metal arrow with strange parts sticking out from its sides. "Intelligence reports tell us it is about 2 kilometers long," he said. "But our sensors give us different readings every time we try to scan it. Sometimes the ship seems to be there, and sometimes it seems to be somewhere else at the same time. Our best scientists think it uses technology that we have never seen before." As the meeting continued, more reports came in from across the galaxy. The human warship had been seen at 17 different places at the exact same time. This should have been impossible according to everything they knew about how space and time worked. Each time the ship appeared, it quickly defeated the local military forces and left behind the same message about stopping expansion. One report came from the hegemony territories where Admiral Zektar ruled. His people were tough fighters who had conquered hundreds of worlds over the centuries. But when the USS Defiance showed up at their newest colony, the battle lasted less than 30 minutes. The human ship used weapons that seemed to bend space itself and made entire fleets disappear without leaving any wreckage behind. Another report came from the Trade Federation, where Chancellor Vrex controlled the flow of goods between star systems. Her people were not warriors, but they had the most advanced defensive technology in the galaxy. Their shields could stop almost any weapon, and their ships could run away faster than anything else. But the human ship had somehow gotten past all their defenses and disabled their entire fleet without destroying a single ship. Then it broadcast a message saying that trade routes through developing star systems were now closed. The strangest report came from the Stellar Dominion, where Prince Kyle lived. His people were explorers who had been mapping the galaxy for longer than anyone else. They knew about secret routes through space and hidden worlds that others had never found. But the human ship had appeared at one of their most secret bases that was hidden in a place where no other species should have been able to find it. The ship had not attacked or made threats. It had simply scanned everything and then broadcast coordinates of 12 other hidden bases before jumping away. Ambassador Thane studied all the reports and shook his head. "This makes no sense," he said. "How can one ship be in so many places at once? How can they know about our secret locations? How can they defeat forces that should be much stronger than they are? Either these humans have technology that is thousands of years ahead of ours, or they are not really using just one ship." The council members looked at each other with worry and fear in their eyes. Some of them ruled empires with billions of citizens, spread across hundreds of worlds. Others controlled trade that moved resources between thousands of star systems. A few commanded fleets with millions of warships, but all of them were now afraid of what one human ship might do next. After hours of discussion, they finally reached an agreement. They had to learn more about these humans before the mysterious Terrans decided what would happen to everyone else in the galaxy. The age of expansion had been the way of life for every species for so long that nobody remembered any other way to live. But now one ship from a small world called Earth was forcing them to change everything they thought they knew about power and control. The meeting ended with orders going out to every corner of the galaxy. Find out everything possible about humanity and their technology. Learn how they fight and what they want. Most importantly, figure out if there really was just one ship, or if the humans were hiding a massive fleet somewhere in the darkness between the stars. As the council members left the chamber to return to their home worlds, each of them wondered the same thing. Had they finally met a species that was stronger than all of them combined, or were they being tricked by clever humans who knew how to make one ship look like many? Either way, the galaxy would never be the same again. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance looking out at the 12 alien ships that had just arrived. His face showed the lines and scars of many battles, but his eyes were tired in a way that came from carrying heavy responsibilities for too long. The view screen showed the strange collection of vessels that had appeared in normal space about an hour ago. Each ship looked completely different from the others, with weird shapes and colors that hurt to look at for too long, Lieutenant. Amy Jong sat at her station, running her fingers over the control panel as information flowed across her screen. "Sir," she said, "the alien delegation is asking permission to come aboard our ship. They are sending what looks like standard diplomatic messages on all the frequencies we monitor. The translation programs are working, but some of the concepts do not make sense in any human language." Morrison turned to his first officer, Commander Kevin Roberts, who was studying the tactical display with a worried expression. "What do you think, Number One?" he asked. "Are they really here to talk? Or is this some kind of trap?" Roberts pointed to the energy readings on his screen. 12 ships with different weapons and defense systems, he said. "They have powered down most of their equipment and are broadcasting peaceful intentions on every channel they can find. It looks real, but we should be careful. Some of these energy signatures are unlike anything we have seen before." The captain walked over to where Dr. Lisa Park was working at the science station. Her job was to understand alien technology and figure out how their weapons worked. "Any signs that they are lying to us?" he asked. "Hidden weapons or ships we cannot see?" Park shook her head while continuing to scan the alien vessels. "No, sir," she said. "But I am picking up some very interesting energy patterns from their lead ship. They seem to be using something like quantum entanglement to talk with other ships that are very far away. That means they might be more advanced than we first thought. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. If they are smarter than we expected, that could work in our favor, he said. Amy, tell the delegation they can send 3 representatives to meet with us. Full diplomatic protection, but they will have guards watching them at all times. An hour later, Morrison sat in the conference room across from 3 beings that looked like nothing Earth had ever seen. The first one called herself Ambassador Lyra, and her skin seemed to be made of some kind of crystal that reflected the lights in the room. When she spoke, the translator turned her musical sounds into clear English words. Captain Morrison, she began, we come seeking understanding. Your actions throughout our territories have caused great concern among our member species. We want to know why you are doing these things, and what you hope to achieve. Morrison leaned back in his chair and studied the 3 aliens carefully. Ambassador, with all respect, your member species have been expanding without limits for hundreds of years. Our analysis shows that within 50 years there would be no worlds left for new civilizations to develop on. We could not let that continue to happen. The second delegate, whose voice came through the translator as a mechanical sound, interrupted him. You speak as if you have some higher authority, she said. But our records show that humanity has barely learned how to travel faster than light. How does one species with one ship think they can control what happens in the entire galaxy? The captain's face became harder, and his voice took on a dangerous tone. Because someone has to do it, he said. And because we have the power to make it happen. Ambassador Lyra held up her hand to calm the situation. Perhaps we could work together, she said. Many of our species would be willing to negotiate new agreements about territory. We could establish safe zones for developing worlds and create rules about expansion. Morrison stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the stars. You do not understand what we are offering, he said. This is not a negotiation or a bargain. This is us telling you how things are going to be from now on. The age of unlimited expansion is over. You can adapt to this new reality, or you can be forced to accept it. The third delegate, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. Captain, surely you must know that even the most powerful warship cannot fight against the combined fleets of 12 galactic empires. What you are suggesting is impossible. Morrison turned back to face the aliens with a look that made all 3 of them uncomfortable. Ambassador Lyra, your people seem reasonable, he said. I suggest you convince your colleagues to accept the new situation before we have to show them just how possible the impossible can be. The meeting continued for another hour, but both sides realized they were thinking about power and responsibility in completely different ways. The aliens saw the galaxy as a place where the strong took what they wanted, and the weak had to accept whatever was left. The humans saw it as a place where everyone should have a chance to grow and develop without fear. When the diplomatic session ended, the alien representatives returned to their ships with more questions than answers. Ambassador Lyra sent a message to the Galactic Council saying that the humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. They did not want territory or resources or slaves. They wanted something much more dangerous, which was to change how everyone else behaved. Captain. Morrison watched the alien ships jump away into hyperspace and wondered if he had made the right choice. Dr. Park came to stand beside him at the observation window. Do you think they will listen to reason, she asked. Morrison was quiet for a long moment before answering. Some of them might, he said. But the others will try to test us. They will gather their fleets and come looking for a fight because they cannot believe that one human ship can really stand against entire empires. Commander Roberts joined them at the window. If they do decide to fight us, sir, what are our orders? The captain looked at the stars and thought about Earth so far away, and the billions of humans who were counting on them to succeed. We do whatever it takes, he said. We show them that humanity keeps its promises no matter what the cost might be. As the USS Defiance prepared to continue its patrol through the galaxy, the crew knew that the real test was still coming. The diplomatic phase was over, and now they would have to prove that their words were backed up by actions. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the greatest fleets in galactic history were beginning to gather for a battle that would decide the future of every living being in the galaxy. The question was not whether humanity would fight, but whether one ship could stand against the combined might of 12 empires and still hold true to the principles that had sent them so far from home. The battle began at exactly 6 in the morning according to ship time. The USS Defiance emerged from its quantum jump to find itself in the center of the largest gathering of warships in galactic history. 2,000 vessels from 12 different empires formed perfect circles around the human ship with their weapons powered up and ready to fire. The sight was both terrifying and magnificent, as ships of every possible design floated in the darkness of space. Admiral Zektar's voice came through the communication channel, sounding confident and pleased. "Captain Morrison, you are surrounded by forces beyond counting," he said. "Surrender now and we will allow your crew to return to Earth without harm. This is your final chance to avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Morrison's response was broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship could hear his words clearly. "Admiral, you still do not understand what you are really facing," he said calmly. "This fight was never about how many ships each side could bring." The first wave of attacks came immediately after Morrison finished speaking. 500 ships unleashed everything they had at once. Plasma cannons that could melt through solid metal fired continuously, while quantum torpedoes that could destroy entire cities exploded against the Defiance's hull. Gravitational weapons that could crush planets tried to tear the human ship apart. The space around the USS Defiance became a blazing inferno of light and energy, as enough firepower to destroy entire fleets focused on the single target. When the brilliant light finally faded and the energy dissipated, the USS Defiance still hung in space completely unharmed. Not a single scratch could be seen on its hull, and all its systems continued to function perfectly. The alien crews stared in disbelief at their instruments, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Kevin Roberts smiled as he read his tactical display. "Defensive systems holding at 12% capacity, sir," he reported cheerfully. "They are not even putting stress on our shields." Morrison opened the general communication channel so all the enemy ships could hear him. "Is that the best you can?" Dewey asked mockingly. "Lisa, show them what human engineering can really accomplish." Dr. Park activated the ship's primary weapon systems, and what happened next challenged everything the assembled fleets thought they knew about physics and warfare. The Defiance did not fire conventional weapons like lasers or missiles. Instead, it projected localized quantum fields that simply caused enemy ships to stop existing. They were not destroyed or blown apart or even damaged. They just ceased to be there, as if they had never existed in the first place. In 30 seconds, 300 ships vanished from reality, leaving no trace behind. Panic spread through the alien fleets like wildfire, as commanders realized they were not fighting technology they could understand or counter. The USS Defiance began moving through their formations like a hunter among prey, with each movement calculated and precise. Ships that tried to escape found their faster-than-light drives disabled by some unknown field effect that the human vessel projected around itself. Admiral Zektar tried to rally his remaining forces despite the fear in his voice. "All ships concentrate. Your fire on their engine section," he ordered. "There has to be a weak point somewhere on that ship." The combined firepower of 1,500 warships focused on the rear section of the Defiance, where its propulsion systems should be located. This time something different happened. The human ship's protective shields flickered for just a moment, and a small section of hull plating showed scorch marks from the intense bombardment. On the bridge, Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez called out, with surprise in his voice. "Captain, we are taking actual damage," he reported. "Whatever weapons they are using in this concentrated attack, they are partially getting through our quantum shielding." Morrison nodded grimly as he absorbed this information. "So we are not completely invulnerable after all," he said. "Good to know what our limits are. Tony, how long can we maintain this level of defensive output against their attacks?" Rodriguez consulted his instruments before answering. "At the current rate of energy drain, maybe 4 hours before we need to shut down and recharge the quantum cores." Lieutenant Amy Jang interrupted with more concerning news. "Sir, I am detecting energy signatures that I have never seen before," she said. "Some of these ships are using weapons that seem to exist partially outside normal space and time." Dr. Park analyzed the new data streaming across her screens. "Jake, they are adapting much faster than we expected," she said with worry in her voice. "These are not the same empires we fought 6 months ago. They have been studying us and learning from every battle. They have developed new technology specifically designed to counter our advantages. Morrison realized the true scope of what they were facing. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had spent months analyzing every piece of data from their previous encounters with the Defiance. They had poured their best scientists and engineers into developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to fight humanity. They are evolving, he said quietly. Just like we hoped they would, but in the opposite direction from what we wanted. The battle continued for 3 long hours with the USS Defiance, systematically reducing the enemy fleet from 2,000 ships to fewer than 200. But each victory came at an increasing cost. The ship's quantum shielding was down to 40% of normal strength. Several weapon systems had been damaged and taken offline. The crew was showing signs of exhaustion from the constant stress and the knowledge that they were fighting for their lives as the surviving ships regrouped for what appeared to be their final desperate assault. Morrison made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship-wide communication system. Prepare for emergency protocol. 7 Commander Roberts stared at him in shock and disbelief. Sir, that protocol has never been tested under actual combat conditions, he said. The risks to the crew and the ship are completely unknown. Morrison looked around at the faces of his officers and crew. These were the acceptable risks, number 1, he said firmly. If we are going to show them what humanity really represents, then now is the time to do it. Dr. Park began entering the activation sequence into her control panel, but her fingers hesitated over the final command. Jake, once we start this process, there will be no way to stop it or go back, she warned. Are you absolutely sure about this decision? Morrison looked around at his crew one more time. These were brave men and women who had followed him into impossible situations without question or complaint. They had left their homes and families behind to serve something greater than themselves. If this was how their story ended, then at least it would be an ending worthy of the principles they had fought to defend. Humanity did not send us out here to play it safe, he said with quiet determination. Lisa, initiate Protocol 7. The USS Defiance began to change in ways that defied description. Its hull started to shift and flow like liquid metal while growing larger and taking on more complex shapes. New weapon ports opened along its surface while the ship's quantum signature expanded to affect a much larger area of space and time. Energy patterns that had never been seen before danced along the hull as the vessel transformed itself into something beyond the understanding of any species in the galaxy. What the assembled fleets witnessed next would be remembered as the moment when they finally understood what it truly meant to challenge the determination and ingenuity of humanity. 6 months had passed since the Battle of the Convergence, as the historians now called it, and Ambassador Lyra stood in the council chamber of Nexus Prime, looking at the many empty chairs around the crystal table. Several empires had completely withdrawn from galactic politics after witnessing what had happened when they challenged humanity. Those that remained had been forced to accept a new reality that none of them had ever imagined possible. The holographic display at the center of the room showed a map of the galaxy that looked very different from the one they had used before. Vast regions that had once been marked as expansion zones or contested territories now carried a simple designation that made every council member uncomfortable. The areas were labeled as Protected Developing Regions, with a note that said Terran Protectorate Prince Kale, who had become the senior council member after his empire agreed to the new territorial arrangements, reviewed the quarterly reports with amazement. The numbers are remarkable, he said. Colonial conflicts are down 93% from previous levels. Resource wars have essentially stopped happening. Even piracy has dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history, Chancellor. Vrex nodded her agreement, though her expression showed she was still troubled by the situation. The benefits of peace cannot be argued, she said. But the cost of achieving it troubles me. We have essentially given control of the galaxy to a single human ship. How can this arrangement possibly last in the long term? Ambassador Lyra activated the communication system. Perhaps we should ask Captain Morrison directly, she said. He has agreed to attend today's session and answer our questions. The view screen came to life, showing Captain Morrison broadcasting from the bridge of the USS Defiance. His appearance had changed significantly over the past months. There were more lines around his eyes and his hair had turned completely gray. but his voice remained steady and full of confidence when he spoke. "Thank you for including me in your discussion," he said. "I understand that you have concerns about how things are currently arranged." Lyra leaned forward to address him directly. "Captain, surely you must see the contradiction in what has happened," she said. "Humanity has created peace through the threat of overwhelming force. How is this different from the imperial domination that you originally opposed?" Morrison took time to consider her question before responding. "The difference, Ambassador, is that now every species in this galaxy has the opportunity to develop according to their own values and priorities," he said. "They can do this without fear of being conquered or having their resources stolen. We are not telling anyone how they should live their lives. We are simply making sure they have the right to make those decisions for themselves." A new voice joined the conversation as Admiral Zektar appeared on a separate screen. He was one of the few survivors from the Great Battle, and his once proud manner had been replaced by something that looked like respect mixed with fear. "Captain Morrison, my people have been studying the data from our last encounter," he said. "What you did to your ship during that battle should not be possible according to any known laws of physics." Morrison's expression became guarded and careful. "Admiral, there are aspects of human technology that must remain secret for everyone's safety, including our own," he said. Dr. Park appeared beside Morrison on the screen. "What the captain means is that Protocol 7 represents humanity's final option," she explained. "It is not something we can use easily or often without serious consequences." "Chancellor," Vrex's eyes showed new interest and concern. "Are you saying that your ship's current abilities represent some kind of enhanced state?" she asked. "That you are operating beyond your normal limits?" Morrison and Park looked at each other before Morrison answered. "Let us just say that the USS Defiance you are speaking with today is not exactly the same ship that left Earth 3 years ago," he said carefully. "The changes we have made have allowed us to maintain stability in the galaxy, but they have also altered us in ways we are still trying to understand." The implications of this revelation created ripples of concern through the council chamber. The idea that humanity had been modifying themselves and their technology to meet the challenges of policing the galaxy added a frightening new dimension to their situation. Prince Kale asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "Captain, what happens if Earth decides to recall the Defiance?" he said. "What happens to the peace that we have all come to depend on?" Morrison's smile carried a hint of sadness that had not been there before. "Earth has made it clear that this mission has no set end date," he said. "The USS Defiance will continue to patrol the galaxy for as long as it takes. My crew and I have accepted that this may be a permanent assignment that will last for the rest of our lives." Ambassador Lyra suddenly understood the true sacrifice that humanity had made. "You are exiles," she said quietly. "You have given up any hope of returning home in order to maintain the balance of power out here in space." Morrison corrected her gently. "Not exiles," he said. "We are guardians. We chose this path because someone has to make sure that the strong do not prey on the weak. Someone has to ensure that expansion does not come at the cost of driving entire species to extinction." The communication ended, leaving the council members sitting in thoughtful silence. The galaxy had achieved a level of peace that none of them had thought possible. But this peace had come at the cost of humanity's most dedicated citizens choosing to live in permanent exile among the stars, far from everything they had ever known. Ambassador Lyra was the first to break the silence. "Perhaps it is time we stop thinking of the humans as occupiers or enforcers," she said. "Maybe it is time we recognize them for what they truly are. They have become the galaxy's conscience made real in the deep emptiness between star systems." The USS Defiance continued its eternal patrol. The ship looked different now after the changes made during Protocol 7. It was larger and more complex with new systems that even its own crew did not fully understand. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge looking out at the stars and thinking about the choice his crew had made. They had volunteered to become something more than human in order to protect principles that were bigger than any single species or empire. They were no longer quite the same people who had left Earth years ago, but they were still committed to the mission that had brought them so far from home. Dr. Park joined him at the observation window. "Do you ever regret the choice we made?" she asked. Morrison considered the question while watching the stars slowly drift past. "Every species in this galaxy now has a chance to grow and develop without fear," he said. Children on 1,000 worlds can look up at the night sky without worrying that strangers will come to enslave them. How could anyone regret making that possible? The crew of the USS Defiance had become something unique in galactic history. They were humanity's gift to the galaxy, and a living reminder that true strength came not from conquest, but from the courage to stand between those who would abuse power and those who could not defend themselves. The age of galactic empires had ended forever. The age of human guardianship had begun and would continue for as long as the stars themselves continued to shine. Somewhere in the darkness between worlds, Captain Morrison and his crew maintained their watch, ensuring that no empire would ever again be allowed to survive at the cost of another species' freedom. They had become legends and myths and heroes all at the same time. But most importantly, they had become exactly what the galaxy needed them to be.